poured straight from a Guinness bottle, Mrs. Shufflewick.
Introduce myself to those of you who have not had the pleasure of hearing me before. Mrs. Shufflewick is the name, star of stage, screen, radio and television, labour exchange and dope parties. Formerly known on the British Music Hall as Poppet Upper and her educated sheepdogs. Do you like the fur? It's cost £200, this fur did. I didn't pay for it myself. I met 200 fellas with £1 each. So I was all right, I wasn't done, was I? I can't remember myself now, to tell you the truth. No, it's the gin and tonic, you see, it fogs the brain. But this is very rare, this fur. This is known in the trade as untouched pussy. Yes, which is unobtainable in the West End of London at the moment. And I don't think there's much knocking about anywhere else. But still, you're very lucky to see me at all tonight in the flesh, because I don't know if you know, but I am weak-willed and easily led. Thank God. And last night, I must tell you this. Last night, I was sitting up in bed about 7:30, mending a puncture. I was, yes, I had a blowout. Not a blow-through, a blowout. That's the last time I'll buy any of those rubber goods. Anyway, I was sticking this patch on, you see, and all of a sudden I had it coming on again. You know, one of me hot flushes. Do you get them? Oh, I do. I have to blow down my blouse on the buses. I thought to myself, well, it's no good me lying here sweating. I thought the best thing I can do is to slip into something loose and pop down to the local and have a little drop of something just to, you know, pull me together. And, of course, you don't know of course you wouldn't know my local, but it's a lovely pub. It really is. It's called the Cock and Comfort. Oh, it's a beautiful place. Mind you, there's more comfort than there is in most other places. Anyway, I was sitting there, you see, in the saloon bar, minding my own business with a glass of Guinness, doing no harm to anyone, and all of a sudden the door opened, like it might be there, you see, and this sailor walked in. I'd never seen him before. I think he was in the Navy himself, you know. And I also think he must have had a French mother and father, because he kissed me on both cheeks. And I was doing my shoelace up. Anyway, I didn't say anything, and he popped himself down beside me, not so much as please, may I, or kiss my foot, or anything. And then he leant over and he spoke with his voice while he was talking, you know, with his mouth. And he said, excuse me, he said, I know you won't mind me saying this, but oh, you do remind me of Elizabeth Taylor. So I thought, hello, my luck's changed here. I said, well, that's very kind of you. I said, is it my figure? So he said, yes, it's gone for a Burton. And before I had any chance to make sort of some witty comeback, he leant over a bit closer still, And he said, would you care for a little something between your lips tonight? I know, that's what I thought. So I said, what had you in mind, actually? So he said, oh, a little something to shove down your guts. Oh, a proper gentleman. So I said, well, that's very kind of you. I'm rather partial to a large port. So he went off and he came back with this picture of Southampton Dock. And then he did something that I have never seen anyone do in a public house before. And I hope I shall never see it again if I live to be 32. He suddenly, without a word of warning, whipped out You might wait until I finish. He whipped out this packet of picture postcards, what he'd brought back from the Middle East, and quite honestly, I have never seen anything so Have you seen them? Oh my God, they make your toes curl. 58 different ways to shake hands. And they're all in act for colour. How those people get themselves in those positions, I shall never... Well, I couldn't do it. I've never been asked. No, but honestly, they are going a bit too far. I mean, there's all these women with no clothes on, and it's disgusting. And there's all these fellas with even less. Bless them. And they've got themselves, you know, sort of in this attitude with one leg on the mantelpiece and the other one in the coal bucket, you know, and they're away and they don't seem to talk at all, do they? I know it's rude to speak with your mouth full. No, you'd think they'd say something, wouldn't you, quite? No, I gave them back to him after 3/4 of an hour. And I put my magnifying glass back in my handbag. And I said, listen, I have no wish to look at this type of literature. Thank you very much. I said, as far as I'm concerned, you can get behind me, Satan. And you know, those were the worst few words. Well, you know yourselves what sailors are like. I mean, no sooner the words than the actions. Oh, they're frustrated. Well, he was last night. He was telling me, he said he just spent 6 months on a banana boat round the Arctic Circle. I mean, you can't mess about with penguins, can you? They walk so fast. And they're too near the ground anyway. But still, he calmed down eventually. He kept buying me large gins, you know, and I kept drinking them. Well, I don't know, just a pretty face. And he was on pints of rum and black. And then we went on to Guinnesses. I had about 18 of those. And then I had a baby sham with some horse liniment in it. What did I have then? Oh, I had a barley wine. I remember that going down and coming back. And then he would make me have this glass of Advocat, which quite honestly, I cannot get on with. I don't know what they do with the cats afterwards. Oh, and I felt shocking. I had to go outside for a bit. I I didn't get it. And when I came back, do you know that little monkey, well, I'd been gone, he'd lined up 2 large drambuies and a fish cake each. And quite honestly, I think it was that fish cake that upset me. I really do. I felt shocking when we came out of that pub. Well, I could say came out. We was asked to leave. No, it wasn't me. It was him, you see, messing about. And I tell you what it was. He'd had a couple of these pills. You know, the ones you read about in the Sunday papers. Not the birth pills. I forget what he said the name was. Sort of, coming on pills. Or so, I think that. Anyway, he said they're very strong. He said you have to swallow them quick, otherwise you'll get a stiff neck. And he had these 2, and he was rampant. Honestly, he was rampant. He was jigging up and down, you know, twanging my knicker elastic. And throwing his pension book in the air as if there was no tomorrow. Well, I didn't mind. There was a fella behind the bar, you see. He was a bit antenatal. So he came round and told us where we could to. And quite honestly, I don't remember leaving the pub. I know I had my head on his shoulder. I forget who was holding my feet. We got outside, and now picture this, if you can. We were standing on the pavement, just the 2 of us, you know, talking about, you know, this, that, and the other. Mostly the other. And I don't know what I said to upset him. I know I mentioned the price of plums, and he suddenly went berserk, and he made a lunge at me. Well, I don't know if you've ever been lunged outside a pub at 11 o'clock. It's a shocking feeling, you know. I did the first thing that came into my head. I shot down this side turning, which I thought was an escape route, and it turned out to be a cul-de-sac. And I was stood there with me back to the brick wall and my legs in 2 dustbins with a John West salmon tin where it mattered most, with the lid up. Oh, those jagged edges. And there was him with his good conduct medals clanking away, and his string vest at half-mast. So I thought to myself, well, this is it tonight, Gladys. Death or dishonour. And then I thought, well, I'm not bleeding dying yet. And then he started, you know, all the manipulation with the hands. Have you had it? And he was trying to tell me this was Japanese jiu-jitsu. But they must be a filthy lot if that's all they mess about. No wonder they've got wonky eyes. Anyway, after about 5 minutes, he put his woodbine out and he shot off. I don't know where he went to. And of course, I'd got no money left. I had to walk home, about 2.5 miles it must have been, and I got to my turning, so I thought to myself, now, it's no good me sort of charging in and having a scene with the old boy, because all he's going to say is, you know, sort of, where have you been, who have you been with, and how much have you managed to spend? So I thought, what I'll do, I'll take all my clothes off downstairs, and I'll just sort of slide up and creep into the Chamber of Horrors. And if he says anything, I should just say, you know, I was watching the epilogue and I nodded off. Pick the bones out of that. So I got to my turning. I got a stitch on, all my clothes off, and I was up the stairs. Everything in the garden was lovely, not a sound. And I got to the bit where it sort of turns round the bend at the top, you know. And I got the shocker. I was on top of a 29 bus. And all these people, they all turned round, you know, all sober. As if they'd never seen a woman with no clothes on top of a bus before. Oh, I just stood there, you know. I still had my earrings on. I thought, well, I'll stare them out. Let one of them make the first move. One fella did. Dirty, filthy beast. Bless him. So, you see, it just shows you what can happen after half a glass of Christmas cake. Now, I brought something to read for you tonight, which I thought you might be interested in. This is a letter I've had from my youngest boy, my Ernie. He's out in the Middle East. He's a soldier in the army. And he's on our side, so it's all right. You can sleep safely in your beds tonight. Or whatever else you finish up. You know, your own business back. Now, this is from I wish you could see my other boy, young Nigel. He's the one with the brains. Takes after me. He's only 19. And as young as that boy is, he is now being detained to give Her Majesty pleasure. So she must think something of him. Anyway, this is from my Ernie. He says, "Dear Sir or Madam," shocking memory. "I am writing this very slow, as I know you cannot read very quick." He's enjoying himself, though. He's out in Mombasa. Lovely people, those Mombassas. But he said, no, he said in one of his letters, he said they're a bit kinky, you know, all the fellas wear their hair sort of parted with mud. And all the women have these soup plates in their gob. Oh, any time's dinner time over there. Now, he says, I'm writing... Oh, I've done that, haven't I? Writing very slow. I have got so many holes in my socks, I can put them on 14 different ways. He's enjoying himself, though. He says, out here, life is one long round of picnics, parties and balls. The week before last, it was all picnics. Last week, it was all parties. And this week, it has all been cancelled. So he must be enjoying himself, on the whole. Now, I can't follow this next bit. He says, I would have put £2 in for you, but I have stuck the envelope down. He takes after his father in that bit, whoever he was. Never even took his cap off. And I was eating chips at the time. And then he finishes up, may God keep you from your loving son, Ernie. I think it's Ernie, or Elsie. Anyway, he's coming home in, I suppose about 6 months. Mind you, he's going to find a difference. Because, you know, when my two boys were only little, they were the only kids in our street. And now, God, you can't move for them. Because, you know, there's a woman living down our street by the name of Mrs. Moore. She's got 14 kids, and that's a fact, all hanging round her door. And the thing that's always bothered me is how she keeps them fed. She was in the pub the other night, so I turned to her and I said, "Don't have any more, Mrs. Moore. Mrs. Moore, please, don't have any more. The more you have, the more you'll want, they say, and enough is as good as a feast any day. If you have many more, Mrs. Moore, you'll have to rent the house next door. They're all right when they're here, but take my advice, oh dear, and don't have any more, Mrs. Moore." And I told her, I said, if anyone should know about kids, I should. Because, you know, I'm just a simple mother, and it's hard to realise my kids have all grown up and gone away. I often think about them in the days when they were young. I've watched them in their work and in their play. I'm just a simple mother, and I worry night and day, and I think about them everywhere they go. And though it may seem strange, I know I'll never change, and not one of them would want me to, I know.
And now for the second tip of the Guinness bottle, out pops Mrs. Shufflewick.
I saw old Mrs. Moore again this morning. As a matter of fact, she was down the shop, you know. Oh, my God, she did look haggard. I've never seen anyone look so haggard as she was this morning. I said, "Whatever's the matter, dear?" "Oh," she said, "it's our Linda." Because that's her eldest girl. She's only 19, you know, always getting up to something if someone lives her. And so I said, what's up then?" "Well," she said, "all I can say is, heaven help our Linda. She's really gone and done it now. What's more, I mean, it's all so obvious. Silly little cow." And if anyone tells her father, well, he's bound to have a fit, followed by, of course, a few convulsions, thanks to our permissive twit. She thinks his name was Stanley. Or was it Sid or Len? Well, the only thing that's certain is it wasn't the flower pot men. Our parish priest, God bless him, the Reverend Father Twit, will no doubt by now be preaching sermons to our dear permissive twit. So unless we raise the money, well, she'll have to let it out. Well, I mean, no, what I mean is she'll have to sort of have it the right, you know, the wrong way about. In other words, let nature take its course and do its bit. For the sake of those concerned with our dear permissive, own permissive, dear permissive tweet. But still, that's a problem. I'm glad I've only got my 2 boys to worry about. And I mean, you can't be too sure of those these days, can you? No, you can't. I mean, all these sexual changes going on. I mean, you send your kids abroad and, well, I mean, Switzerland, there's a start, isn't it? 2 pills and a nick with a fish knife, you never know what's going to come out. Yeah. So I expect when they do, we'll give them a bit of a party. Open another tin of cat food, you know. Oh, they don't know. They think it's corned beef. My old man's been eating it for months. He nearly twisted his neck last week trying to lick his back. No, but talking of food, I've had a bit of a problem this last week. I've been staying with my sister Lily for a couple of days. Oh, you like old Lil. She's a good sport. She's always got plenty of food in, and there's always a bottle of methylated on the sideboard. No, in case you get it coming on again. But she's a silly cow, oh, really. No, she is. She's not very bright. And so I'm the brightest one in our family. And you can off as well. And I was very happy with her up until... I hope they can rub that out. I should get shocked for this. I was very happy with her up until last Wednesday, which was the day I was going to leave, you see. And I was sitting up in bed about 7:30, chopping a bit of firewood for her. Well, you've got to make yourself useful, haven't you, when you're in someone else's letty. And so she came into my bedroom. She came straight in, you see. There's no door on, just a bit of sacking tied up. Well, she lives in a council house. I don't know if you've ever lived in a council house. Oh, my God, the walls are thin. I tell you how thin her walls are. The other Sunday, she opened the oven to have a look at the joint. And there was the fella next door dipping his bread in her gravy. And the day before that, she went to poke the fire, and she had a boy off his bike outside. I won't tell you where the poker went. I don't think she'll get it back. And I think he enjoyed it. Anyway, so I said, well, what's the matter? She said, I can't make you a cup of tea this morning because my water's been cut off. So I said, well, don't worry and get your knickers in a twist. I can go without. So she potted off and she came back about 10 minutes later with my breakfast all laid out on a tea tray. You know, all very nice, a couple of boiled eggs and some bread and butter and a bit of marmalade, like I like it. But what I have been trying to fathom ever since, and I cannot work out, if they'd cut that woman's water off, what did she boil those eggs in? No, it's very funny, isn't it? Good job I never had them poached. Of course, my old man would have eaten them if he'd been there. He'd eat anything. I'll give you an instance. He came home the other night. Well, the other night, about the afternoon, at 4:15. He'd been down the market, some of his mates, you know, drinking. And he came in the back door Lord of all, he surveyed. And he came in persistently falling over. And he said, put this in the oven for me. I'll hurry it from my supper. Blessed tortoise. He didn't know, he thought it was a steak and kidney pie. He's got no idea about animals. June, I'll tell you something, when we were first married, I didn't know much about cooking. I admit that. And I had 2 lamb chops I was going to do for him, and I put them in the oven on a low gas, and I suddenly felt the urge. Yes. So I went to the old cock, and I'm afraid I overdid it. I had, about 3. And of course, when I came back, he was stood there. And he got the oven door open like 2 burnt offerings. They were, honestly. And he did his nut. He was like Edward Heath. He said, I'm not having you cooking me. He said, I'm not having you cooking on that. He said, I'm going out tomorrow and I'm going to buy you a griller. I don't know what he thinks I'm going to do with one of those blessed great airy things running about. No, it's him that's driven me to drink, you see. Not that I needed much driving, I knew the way myself. No, but quite honestly, I have been under my doctor for the past 6 months. On and off. And he's a big fella. Dr. McKenkie, his name is. Used to be a horse slaughterer. Only he changed his mind in mid-air one Wednesday afternoon when he was messing about with a stallion, and now he does it with people. And I go down every Tuesday evening to see him. I always go in the evening because his hands are warmer then, And I sit in his insulting room, and he's got the convector fire there, to warm you up. And he's got all the magazines laid out for you to read. I was reading one last Tuesday, and it's very sad about that Titanic. And he's got all these posh women's magazines, like the Vogue and the Good Housekeeping and all the other ones. I was reading, now you fellas, now this is serious, you fellas, you might laugh about women's magazines, but there are things in there that you've never even dreamt of. I was reading this one the other week, and there's a whole page devoted to the stars and the occult. It's written by a gypsy fella. He lives in a field with a horse. It's a mare, he knows what he's doing. And he has got a glass eye and a crystal ball. What he looks into. He's a bit of an acrobat. And he can tell what you're going to do before you've done it. You see, and then you write to him and he gets you out of it. And these women, they write these bloody silly letters in. There was one, if I can remember, there's one woman the other week, she wrote this letter, she said, Dear Gypsy P. That's what, no, it's quite legal, that's what they call it. She said, Dear Gypsy P, my husband has recently retired at the age of 62, and he is pottering about the house, and all he can think about is, And she said, I cannot bend down to plug in my Hoover or do any low dusting. But what he takes advantage. And she said the house is in a shocking state. And my nerves are shot to pieces. Please, could you help me? And then she signed herself worried. Yes, and my God, she'd need to be. Oh, and then she got P.S. Please excuse the jerky handwriting. Anyway, I'm getting away from the point. As I was saying, I was... No, not that point. I was in Dr. McKenke's in Salting, and we have to sit on a bench there. It's not like the National Health, you know, it's a bench. And there was this woman sitting beside me. Oh, and she wasn't a state. She was like that, you know. Oh, quakering all over. And she got me doing it after 5 minutes. So I said, whatever's the matter, dear? I said, can't you keep still? So she said, no, it's the whiskey. He always gets me like this. So I said, well, you want to get him to give you something to stop you drinking it? So she said, no, I want him to give me something to stop me spilling it. And there was one old boy on the end of this bench. Oh, he was as white as a sheet. About 89, I should have thought. Hardly worth him going home. Anyway, the buzzer went, and it was my turn to go in, so I went. And there was Dr. McKenke, you know, sitting at his desk with his horn-rimmed glasses on and his ballpoint in his hand. So he said, come in, dear. You know, he treats me just as if I'm human when I go to... He said, come in. He said, have you had a checkup lately? I said, no, a couple of Hungarians. I shouldn't have said it, I know that. I should not have said it. Still, the devil was in me that night. Or someone with a red hat on. Anyway, he said, well, take all your clothes off, I'll have a look at your ears first. And you feel such a fool, you know, stood there with nothing on, don't you? Well, I do. I mean, you don't know where to put your hands for the best. If you cover the swings, you lose on the roundabout. I put mine behind me head. I thought that was... And he went all over me with his little knob, like they do. Well, on the end of the tube, you know. Went all over me. And he said, now, I want you to do something for me, if you will. And I said, yes, by all means, dear. And he went over. Well, nothing on it. He went over. And he pulled the blinds down. And I thought, hello. This is it. This is where he gets struck off the list. But it wasn't. He came back with this sort of, torch thing on his head. And he said, now, I want you, if you will, just to cross your legs as a precaution. And then I want you to turn your head that way. Of course, being easily led, I did. And do you know, I hadn't turned my head 2 seconds and he did me a mischief. He gave my knees such a bash with this blessed rubber hammer. Well, I think it was his hammer, I don't know, I got my head turned. If it wasn't, he must have had a damn good home life. And you know it's supposed to jump up. Your leg. Well, mine fell off. So he said, well, get your clothes on again. He said, I can't find out what's wrong with you. I think it must be the drink. So I said, well, I'm not bothered. I'll come back when you're sober. Some people got no sense of humour, have they? No. You'd have to have a sense of humour if you're living with my old man. Do you know, I'll tell you this about, I don't know how many years ago. I was first married, about 24 years ago, when I was about 22, and we was in this flat. We was in this flat, and we were there for about 6 months. And then, of course, the inevitable happened. We had to move away, because the rent we couldn't pay. The moving van came round just after dark. There was me and my old man shoving things inside the van, which we've often done before, let me remark. We packed all we could pack in the van, and that's a fact. We got inside all we could get inside. Then we packed all we could pack on the tailboard at the back, till there wasn't any room for me to ride. So my old man said, follow the van and don't dilly-dally on the way. Off went the van with the home packed in it. I followed on with me old coffin in it. I dillied, I dallied, I dallied and I dillied. Lost me way and don't know where to roam. I stopped on the way to have a little drop of you know, and I can't find my way home. Oh, I'm in such a mess. I don't know the new address. I don't even know the blessed neighbourhood. And it looks as if I might have to stop out half the night, and that ain't gonna do me any good. Now, I don't make no complaint that I'm coming over faint. What I want now is a good substantial feed. And I sort of, well, I kind of feel if I don't soon have a meal, I shall have to rob the linnet of his seed. Now, come on, all together, help me out. My old man said, follow the van and don't dilly-dally on the way. On went the van with the old man in it. I followed on with the old coffin in it. I dillied, I dallied, I dallied and I dillied. Lost my way and don't know where to go. Now we can't trust the special like the old time got. Bring it round, find your way. Thank you. Now, no, you're doing the work, not me. Now, I should just like to say thank you very much for being such a marvellous audience. I've enjoyed myself anyway. But if I may be serious just for one moment. No, I would like to say this to you. You know, when you look around you and you only stop to think, it's the old folks that need a hand the most. Perhaps being on their own all day with never any change, I expect they sometimes feel like giving up the ghost. when just a friendly smile can make them feel worthwhile, or even if you only pass the time of day. Because they never make much fuss about all they've done for us. And you know, we'll be the same ourselves one day.